Welcome to Back, Mystic Empires. There is an empire lost to the sands of time, an empire that built the template for the world. And there is a king, forgotten by many, whose name should be whispered with the same reverence as Caesar and Alexander. Today, we are not just studying history. We are reclaiming a legacy. We are journeying back to the ancient world, not to a land of mere conquerors, but to a civilization of visionary kings, to the architects of the first superpower. This is the story of the Persians, kings of the ancient world. Imagine a world defined by brutal, fleeting empires. A world where conquered cities were razed, their populations enslaved or slaughtered, their gods trampled into dust. This was the way of the ancient world, a cycle of blood and ashes, where power was demonstrated by the depth of the ruins one could leave behind. Then, from the rugged plateau of Iran, a new power emerged, one that would shatter this brutal paradigm and, for the first time, build an empire not just on force, but on an idea. A revolutionary, almost unimaginable idea for its time, that an empire could be strong because it was tolerant, that it could be unified because it celebrated diversity. This was the Persian vision. Our story begins not with a Persian, but with their predecessors, the Babylonians. In 586 BCE, the Babylonians, under King Nebuchadnezzar, did what empires did. They crushed the rebellious kingdom of Judah, destroyed its great temple in Jerusalem, and forced its people, the Judeans, into exile in Babylon. For decades, they lived by the rivers of Babylon, weeping as they remembered their homeland, their identity as a people slowly eroding under the weight of despair. This was the accepted fate of the conquered, to be assimilated, to be forgotten. But history was about to turn an unexpected page. Enter Cyrus the Great, a name that echoes through millennia not for the battles he won, though he won many, but for the single, breathtaking act of mercy that defined his reign. In 539 BCE, Cyrus's armies marched on Babylon. But instead of a bloody siege and the predictable sack, something extraordinary happened. The gates of the mighty city were opened, some say from within. Cyrus walked into the heart of one of the world's most powerful kingdoms not as a destroyer, but as a liberator. And then, he did the unthinkable. He issued a decree, a simple clay cylinder, inscribed with words that would send a shockwave through the ancient world, a shockwave we can still feel today. It is known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And on it, Cyrus proclaimed that all the peoples held captive by the Babylonians, including the Judeans, were free. Free to return to their homelands. Free to reclaim their plundered treasures. Free to worship their own gods, in their own way, in their own temples. Imagine the scene. The weeping by the rivers of Babylon turned to cries of disbelief, then to shouts of joy. After a generation in chains, they were going home. They were allowed to be themselves again. Cyrus didn't just give them their land back, he gave them their soul back. This was not a political calculation. This was a philosophical revolution. Cyrus understood a fundamental truth that every empire before him had missed. You cannot build an enduring kingdom on a foundation of fear and resentment. A chain, no matter how strong, will eventually break. But a tapestry, woven from countless different threads, each one strong and vibrant in its own right, creates something beautiful, resilient, and unbreakable. The Persians were the first weavers of the human tapestry. They were the first to look upon the incredible diversity of humankind, with all its languages, its customs, its gods, and see not a threat to be crushed, but a strength to be harnessed. This was the birth of the Achaemenid Empire, the first Persian empire, and it was built on this radical principle of tolerance. But vision alone is not enough. An empire needs structure, it needs bones. And the man who gave the Persian Empire its skeleton was Darius the Great. If Cyrus was the visionary heart, Darius was the brilliant mind. He looked at an empire that now stretched from the borders of India to the shores of Greece, from the steppes of Central Asia to the cataracts of the Nile, and he saw not chaos but potential. And so, he began to build. He divided this vast realm into 20 provinces, called satrapies, each governed by a satrap. This was decentralization on a scale never before attempted. But here was the genius. While the satrap answered to the great king, the local populations were largely governed by their own laws and traditions. The Persian Empire was a federation of cultures, all flying under the banner of the King of Kings. And to bind this colossal domain together, Darius created the arteries of empire. He built the Royal Road. Imagine a highway stretching over 1,500 miles, from the bustling capital of Susa to the vibrant city of Sardis. A journey that once took 3 months could now be made in a week by royal couriers. Relay stations with fresh horses were placed at regular intervals, creating the first postal system, a nervous system for a continent-spanning body. This was more than a road, it was a statement. It said that the farthest corner of the empire was connected to its heart. It said that information, trade, and ideas should flow freely. For the first time in history, a merchant could travel from one end of the known world to the other under the protection of a single, stable government. Goods, art, and knowledge flowed along these roads, enriching every culture they touched. Darius was also an economic pioneer. He introduced standardized coinage, the daric, a currency that was trusted from the markets of Egypt to the bazaars of Bactria. He dug a canal from the Nile to the Red Sea, a precursor to the Suez Canal, linking the Mediterranean world to the Indian Ocean. He was a builder of cities, of palaces, and of a new ceremonial capital that would stand as a testament to Persian power and artistry, Persepolis. Persepolis was not a fortress, it was a platform. Its grand stairways, lined with reliefs showing delegates from every corner of the empire bringing gifts, was a stone declaration of unity in diversity. It was a monument not to one people, but to all peoples under the Persian sun. This was the empire at its peak. An empire where a Greek doctor could find employment in the royal court. Where a Jewish woman like Esther could become a queen. Where Egyptian engineers could work on Persian projects. It was a cosmopolitan world, an ancient version of our globalized society. The peace they enforced, the Pax Persica, allowed for an unprecedented cross-pollination of ideas that would later fuel the golden ages of Greece and Rome. The Persians were the stable, organizing force that made later Western civilization possible. But no story of greatness is without its challenges. No empire, no matter how enlightened, is immune to the tests of fate and the temptations of hubris. The glory of the Persian Empire would face its ultimate test in the West, against a collection of scrappy, independent city-states, the Greeks. The Persian Wars, immortalized in Western history as a triumph of Greek freedom over Eastern despotism, are often told from one side. But let us look deeper. King Xerxes, the son of Darius, assembled one of the largest invasion forces the ancient world had ever seen to punish Athens for its support of a rebellion. He built a bridge of boats across the Hellespont, a staggering feat of engineering that the Greeks saw as an act of arrogance, of a man trying to chain the sea itself. At the narrow pass of Thermopylae, a small Greek force led by the Spartan king Leonidas made a legendary stand. For 3 days, they held the entire Persian army at bay. They were betrayed, they were surrounded, and they fought to the last man. Their sacrifice became a symbol of courage for the ages. But here is the inspiring part of this story, even in what the Persians would see as a setback. The Persian Empire, at this moment of immense frustration, was not facing a rival superpower. It was facing an idea. The idea of freedom. The idea that men would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. The Persians, the great organizers, the masters of administration, had encountered a spirit they could not easily quantify or control. And though they won at Thermopylae, and later burned Athens, they were ultimately defeated at the sea battle of Salamis and the land battle of Plataea. The giant had been stung, and it withdrew. This was not the end of the Persian Empire. Far from it, it continued for another 150 years, a testament to its incredible resilience and sound foundation. But the conflict with Greece revealed a tension that exists to this day, the tension between the power of a unified, centralized system and the fierce, unpredictable power of individual liberty. The Persians had mastered the first. They stumbled against the second. And in that struggle, history was forged. The end came not from the west, but from the north. A young, brilliant, and ruthless king from the kingdom of Macedon, Alexander, saw the Persian Empire not as a model to learn from, but as a prize to be won. He crossed into Asia and began a relentless campaign. He defeated the Persian armies at the battles of Granicus, Issus, and finally, Gaugamela. The last Achaemenid king, Darius III, was betrayed and killed by his own satraps. Alexander, in a symbolic act, burned the great palace at Persepolis. The first Persian Empire, the empire of Cyrus and Darius, was no more. It is easy to see this as a simple tragedy, the fall of a great civilization. But the story of the Persians does not end with ashes. Because their greatest invention, their model of empire, was too powerful to die. Alexander, the conqueror, became Alexander the student. He married a Persian princess. He integrated Persian soldiers and officials into his own army. He adopted Persian dress and court customs. He tried to fuse Greek and Persian culture into a new, hybrid world. He realized, perhaps too late, that to rule the East, he had to become more like the Persians he had defeated. The Persian model of governance, their system of satrapies, their tolerance, their infrastructure, this became the blueprint for every empire that followed. The Seleucids, the Parthians, the Sasanians, and even the Romans, all stood on the shoulders of the Persian giants. The administrative genius of Darius became the foundation for the world to come. So, what is the legacy of the Persians? It is not just in the ruins of Persepolis, or the words on the Cyrus cylinder, which today stands as the first charter of human rights in the United Nations. Their legacy is far more profound. They were the first to dream of a world united not by uniformity, but by respect. They were the first to prove that strength and mercy are not opposites, but two sides of the same coin. They were the first globalists, the first to try and build a commonwealth of man. In a world that often feels fractured, where differences are used as weapons, the Persian example is a beacon of hope from the distant past. They showed us that our diversity is not our weakness, it is our greatest potential for strength. They were builders, not destroyers, organizers, not just conquerors, visionaries in a world of short-sighted tyrants. The sands of time did not simply swallow the Persian Empire. They preserved its lessons, waiting for us to uncover them. The story of the Persians is not a dusty relic from a forgotten age. It is a mirror. It asks us, how do we wield power? Do we use it to dominate, or to elevate? Do we see difference as a problem to be solved, or a gift to be celebrated? The Persian kings, the kings of the ancient world, chose the path of elevation. They chose the path of celebration. And in doing so, they built something more enduring than any monument of stone. They built an idea that 1,000 different voices can sing in one harmonious chorus. An idea that true leadership is about enabling others to be their best selves. That idea did not die at Gaugamela. It was merely scattered to the winds, waiting to be rediscovered, waiting to inspire us once again. This was the empire of the Persians. And their story is our inheritance. Thanks for watching Mystic Empires. Don't forget for seeing more interesting videos, like, share and subscribe.